South Africa is coming out of everyone's mouths now. The mainstream establishment media are bashing Donald Trump for what happened in the Oval Office. I mean, look, for the first time in a long time, and I believe it's been a long time coming, the U.S., the media, and even the White House are just lit up with claims of systemic attacks on white farmers. What do the numbers actually show, and how would you say that this debate and this newfound exposure for the issue is affecting what you guys are doing in the Western Cape?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that question. And the big debate that's happening here in South Africa is it a genocide or is it not a genocide? Which absolutely blows my mind that we can be having that discussion. First of all, if we're debating that topic, if it is a genocide or not a genocide, my goodness, is there a problem or is there not a problem? So in my view, there is 100% a genocide taking place. If this isn't a genocide, I don't know what is a genocide. So let's look at the definitions here. Boers, the Afrikaans term boers means white Afrikaans farmer. In 1994, when the ANC regime took over, we had approximately 60,000 white Afrikaans farmers or boers. As we sit here today, we have 30,000 boers left. In the last 30 years, the numbers differ. It could be a lot higher, but it's pretty much accepted, and groups like AfriForum and others have recorded the names of every death. These are written in plaques, in stone. These are not fabricated numbers. These are people that died. And let me just say, they didn't get a bullet in the head. Maybe we'll get into it a bit later, but viewers need to understand we're not talking about 3,000 people that have been murdered in the last 30 years under the ANC regime. We're talking about 3,000 people that were elderly, were women, were children. In some cases, there was a 12-year-old boy that was boiled to death in a bathtub. His skin was coming off him. For hours, they tortured him. It's not nice to talk about this, but people need to know this is not a bullet in the head and stealing a tractor. A mother and her daughter abused with glass bottles so badly that when they found their bodies, they didn't know whether they'd been raped or not. This is the type of sickness, absolute sickness that is happening. They take their blood and they write on the walls, kill the Boer. 30 years of this, 3,000 deaths. That's 10% of the current Boer population. They've wiped out 10% of the current white Afrikaans farming community. Now, if that's not a genocide, I don't know what is. And if you look at the United Nations definitions, you look at a group called Genocide Watch, there is a process here. You don't just say it's genocide when people are coming down the highways with machetes and killing everyone in sight that's white. That is the final form of a genocide. What we have here in South Africa has been a progressive development over 3 decades of this communist agenda. And Cyril Ramaphosa was the person to say this. He was one of the greatest constitutional lawyers that we had here in South Africa, and potentially the world, Dr. Mario Ambrosini, who was the right-hand man to Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi. He, being a member of parliament, had discussions with Cyril Ramaphosa in the early years. And Cyril Ramaphosa openly said to Mario Ambrosini, our strategy, our communist strategy, is to boil the white people in this country slowly, like frogs in a pot, gradually increasing the temperature as the frog doesn't realize that it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter until it gets to the point that that frog has boiled to death. And we don't need to look anywhere else but take Cyril Ramaphosa on his word. He's never refuted this quote that was attributed to him by Mario Ambrosini. And this is what we're facing here. We're entering the 4th decade of ANC regime rule. We've currently lost 10% of the Boer population. And as I mentioned before, it's not just a bullet in the head. It is the most horrific torture for hours and hours, because these people are living on desolate farms, and these groups arrive and they do the most atrocious things. And anyone who's got a solid stomach, but the will to find out what has been happening in South Africa, just needs to Google South African farm murders, and they will find out for themselves the atrocities that we face here.